I've teased a little bit about what my thoughts are on flock cameras, but I haven't really, dived into this topic at all. I have Dan Lennington standing by from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty because I do want to dive into the topic. And it was because you had posted something that I think it was rural Oconomowoc or somewhere near Oconomowoc had installed these flock cameras on, and you're like, why would you need them in rural Oconomowoc? And my town, which is Lake Mills, has put them everywhere. You cannot get in or out of the city, which is very, very small, like 5,000 people, without being on a flock camera. And in our case, the police department just made an agreement with the company, didn't put it through a council vote or anything, and just put them up. And this is happening all over the place. And I'm fearful that our pro-police people will default to not fighting this when maybe they should think about what this technology can and eventually likely will be used to do.
Yeah, it's real troubling. Just let your listeners know these flock cameras. They typically are on a black pole with a solar panel and a camera, and you might not notice them. I've seen them out in the country in Waukesha County, just on county roads. And what they do is they take a photograph of your license plate. Actually, every license plate that goes by, every car, vehicle that goes by it, there's a photograph taken and it's uploaded to a database. And this is a service that is sold to law enforcement agencies. And under the agreement, the law enforcement agency can search these databases and basically create a map of where you have been and where you have gone. And they're all interconnected. So the Lake Mills Police Department shares information with Milwaukee County. Milwaukee County shares with Waukesha, shares with Northern Illinois. And so it creates this sort of mosaic of information that allows law enforcement to track your daily movements and to decide exactly, who's going where and figure out who's going where. They don't need a warrant, though, to search these databases. They can do them for whatever reason they want. Now, their internal policy will say that they can only use it for figuring out, solving crimes. But we know from recent media attention that's actually, there's a lot of abuse of these databases. So that's basically what this is. It tracks your daily movements. And so, one of the important legal principles that we're concerned about is that under the Fourth Amendment, you have a right to be secure in your location history. And the Supreme Court has said this numerous times that law enforcement agencies are not supposed to use modern technology to basically track your movements, and that this flock camera system is actually doing that. It's creating this recording of where you have been and what you've been doing.
It's not like the old license plate readers, because this one, number one, instantly, it's AI powered. It shares with a national database. It becomes national or global even. So it's not just like the old license plate readers. Okay, somebody reported a crime at 8:28 a.m. and saw the person driving down Main Street or whatever. And so we got a license plate reader there. We're going to go check back at 8:28, which was more cumbersome. And I appreciate police wanting something easier to use. And this is instant. This is much easier to use. It's also AI powered. And so the old license plate readers were also kind of, they were just, they were harder to use. They were more cumbersome to use. This technology is easy to use and it can be expanded. And that's even a bigger concern. You know exactly where I've gone every single minute of every single day. That's creepy enough, but it can be expanded. Flock is telling people, if you need it, we can essentially kind of turn it into what are called stinger operations, which need a warrant to capture Wi-Fi data, cell phone data, et cetera, et cetera. If you need us to provide this extra service, we're here for you. We've got tech reps that can show you how to do that as well. And it suddenly becomes, I don't know, like China. It suddenly starts to feel like you're in a surveillance state.
Yeah, the expansion that Flock's doing right now also is to private companies. So they invite movie theaters, that they invite grocery stores, Targets. When you go in to get your car washed, look behind you. You'll see there is a license plate reader in most modern car washes right now. Now all that information is being aggregated. So everywhere you're going, you're having your license plate taken. Now, when I went to a recent car wash and I looked over to the side and saw they were taking a photograph of my face. Below my face on the screen, I could see that they had listed my credit card number, and then next to it was a photograph of my license plate. So they had aggregated just in that one visit to this car wash, and if you go to a brand new car wash, you'll see this, that they have gotten your face, your name, your credit card number, and your license plate, which includes your vehicle and the make and model. And that is all aggregated together, sold out on the internet as a way to market, things to you and try to get you to buy things, commercial activity. But also, the cops can also search those databases whenever they want, as long as they have a subscription to Flock. And in Wisconsin, there are over 200 police departments and sheriff's offices that have contracts with Flock, the Flock system. Now, there have been a few that have canceled their contract with Flock because there's been a number of controversies in Wisconsin about police officers abusing Flock, based on officers searching for their ex-girlfriend or getting private information about particular people they're interested in. It's been in Menasha, Racine, Kenosha, Greenfield, Milwaukee have all had documented cases. People have been fired for abusing the Flock system, and this has caused some PDs just to pull the plug on it. But once it gets sold to private companies and who knows, to schools and things, it just creates this web where you're never allowed to go anywhere without your information being shared online, right, with both the private sector and with law enforcement.
So there's another company out there too called Safer, SAFR, different than Flock, but as I'm looking it up here, the cameras can work the camera technologies can work in tandem. Safer actually does the facial recognition, and that's what you're seeing probably at that car wash you were at. But license plate, but Flock is being used by cities and parking ramps. It's just a kind of a viral story of a woman who drove into a parking ramp with her friend, and her friend did not pay for the parking. And because her credit card was already, loaded, and somehow her cell phone signal had a signature, they were able to charge her credit card for her friend's missed parking payment. Now, I'm not sure if that's Safer or if that's Flock or if that's a different technology. Point being, maybe it's not just Flock, but it's all of these camera technology companies, AI-powered camera technology companies. And we have no rules on this stuff, Dan. And I was chatting with you, and you said we even have bad case law on this that technically says this is okay to do.
Yeah, the question the Supreme Court deals with right now is that they've held that searches of cell phone data are searches. This case that came out, Chatri, was a case that came out a few weeks ago that said that when they do a geofence is basically like drawing a circle around an area and then asking Google to tell you, police department, tell me everybody who went in and out of this area because they were trying to investigate a crime. The Supreme Court said that's a search. That requires a warrant signed by a judge. And so the Supreme Court says that your physical movements are protected by the Constitution. But the question that has judges have been dealing with is how many, and you signaled this at the beginning of this segment, is that how many cameras are too much? If you just have a camera that's on the toll booth that takes a picture of you going through the toll booth, that's one thing. But if you live in a city and there's 200 of these cameras and they're constantly monitoring your every movement and creating a database about your whereabouts, that would violate the Fourth Amendment. So the question is that the courts have been dealing with, and there hasn't been a court yet to strike down the use of Flock, although there are several cases pending around the country. The question the judges are dealing with is how many cameras are too many cameras.
And how do you answer that question? How do you answer a question that can't be answered? How many cameras are too many? I don't know. I have no idea. I think the answer in my town is like none. But, is the answer none in downtown or north side of Milwaukee? Is that the answer? None? That's the problem. And so people who support law enforcement will say, we're just going to have to kind of, on a hope and a prayer, trust that it's not going to be too badly abused. But it seems to me we need at least regulation, some attention being paid to it. Do they need to be in rural Oconomowoc? Absolutely not. Do they need to be, on country roads in Waukesha County? Absolutely not. That doesn't make any sense. You can't really justify it. But the company goes and says, we'll give you free cameras. We'll give you a 6-month or a year subscription to the service. And if you don't want to keep them, you can give them back. Well, nobody wants to give them back. Once you got them, it's information. If you start to rely on the information, you start to rely on the information. You don't want to go back to the old clunky way of getting that information, warrants and such.
Yeah, and we've dealt with this with cell phones, which is, if you're when you carry around a cell phone, you're carrying around your location, and you're having a microphone on you at all times. So you're being recorded. Your location is being recorded, and we know that if the law enforcement agencies want to get that data, they've got to get a warrant. So we know that, at least, that as far as your carrying around your phone is concerned, the cops can't spy on that without a warrant. But these new technologies with cameras, if they're effectively doing the same thing, if effectively you can tell where Vicki McKenna went today and what she did and the location of her car, isn't that the same as this just checking on your phone and just snooping on your phone like they cannot do right now? And so, the legislature needs to grapple with this. Congress needs to grapple with this. And yes, we support our law enforcement agents, and we want them to solve crimes and protect missing kids. But this idea that, we have to be able to spy on you in order to, once in a while solve an Amber Alert is ridiculous, because, they could say the same thing about snooping on your cell phone. They could say, well, we need to access your cell phone at all times without a warrant because it will help us solve crimes. Well,
and it would.
Yeah, of course.
By the way, it would
solve crimes. Yeah. But
especially with AI, especially with AI power. If police could snoop on your cell phone at all times, they would definitely solve more crimes. Even though Vicki McKenna doesn't commit a crime, Dan Lennington doesn't commit a crime, they would need access to my cell phone, because we need access to all cell phones just in case your cell phone has information that might help us solve a crime that happened near you, etc. Of course, they would be able to more easily solve crimes. They would. It's true, but it's illegal. And the question is, are we going to just simply shrug our shoulders on this now extremely more highly powerful technology? It's way more powerful than license plate readers, without any kind of guardrails whatsoever. And that's my big concern. I guess I'm hoping that there's some maybe new case law coming soon.
Yeah, and I would just tell people, this is one of these things. This is a conservative principle, the idea that the Fourth Amendment protects the privacy of your movement. But it is one of these things that we should embrace as a bipartisan issue, because there's people who call themselves liberals or progressives, and people who would call themselves conservatives or libertarians who would agree on this general issue that you shouldn't be snooped on. And so this might actually be an issue that the left and the right can come together and achieve some common ground to ensure that we do have privacy in our movements, and that we do not become a surveillance state like China.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want a social credit system. They don't want ICE to have information. I don't agree with their reason. They don't agree with my reason. Maybe we agree on the pathway to get to both things. I appreciate the time, Dan Lennington. Thanks very much.
Thank you.